Got an interesting new commitment from Joe Biden on the environmental front, if we can throw this article up. So obviously, Keystone XL Pipeline has been a big flashpoint on the left, in particular for environmentalists. The Obama administration reluctantly pulled the plug on it. Trump re-upped it, and now Joe Biden has vowed again to pull the plug on it, and some climate campaigners are applauding him for that move, and I applaud him for that move as well. It's an interesting dynamic because part of why, Saagar, the Green New Deal has been such an important framework and innovation in terms of the climate movement is because, like, Keystone, for example, is controversial within the left, even because some labor unions are in favor of it, while environmental groups are very much opposed to it. And so when you have any one particular issue like that, you end up dividing some of the left coalition. The Green New Deal and the way it centers jobs and a just transition as part of a larger package means that, number one, it's not just symbolic, and I don't want to say that Keystone is just symbolic. It's not. There's reality there as well. But it puts it within a larger framework that allows some of those tensions to be eased.
Yeah, I mean, I've always thought that was kind of the political genius of the Green New Deal, which is that, not that I'm for it, and I think it's mostly ridiculous, and I think the fantasy that we're going to have millions of new jobs based on ultimately what we need to do, which is reduce carbon, is something that, if you want to do something about climate change, is ridiculous. But broader than that, I mean, politically, the real issue is what you point to. Labor unions, I mean, look at the Trump Keystone executive order, which is not only start pipeline, but that the pipeline itself has to be built with American steel. So that helps the American steel industry, that helps labor unions. Yes, it will cost slightly more, but I think what you're getting at, and this is the correct thing with Biden, and this is what the Obama people did too, is they tried to split the difference. They'd be like, all right, I'm gonna cancel Keystone, but I'm not gonna go all in on Green New Deal. And what it leads you with is kind of this ridiculous Biden debate moment, which we've pointed to often, which is that this is a guy who's, from the left of his party, the Sunrise people gave him an F.
Right.
So they're not gonna give him any credit. And you know what? By committing anti-Keystone and saying that you'd be sacrificing millions of good-paying jobs in favor of green regulation, you're in a political nowhere spot. I mean, let's just remember this from a previous Democratic debate.
Vice President Biden, I'd like to ask you, 3 consecutive American presidents have enjoyed stints of explosive economic growth due to a boom in oil and natural gas production. As president, would you be willing to sacrifice some of that growth, even knowing potentially that it could displace thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of blue-collar workers in the interest of transitioning to that greener economy?
The answer is yes.
I could not, but I remember we were doing our post-live.
Yeah, we're like,
I could not believe that he was like, yes, absolutely. I was like, oh my God. I mean, who says that? I mean, does anybody want to tell him how many fracking jobs there are in Pennsylvania?
He's not very nimble. I mean, look, the number of jobs that Keystone actually creates is not that many. But when you fixate on one specific issue, then it becomes very easy, and I'm sure President Trump will be happy to do this, to make this a jobs versus climate issue. And a lot of people will side with jobs because it's very tangible, right? Climate feels sort of like in the ether, and it feels overwhelming because it's such a big problem, and one pipeline, is that really going to change the game? It also, again, it's important and it's good symbolism. It does not yet demonstrate that he's going to go any further than the Obama administration did. Sure. I mean, that's been his argument the whole time, is basically like, let's go back to the things that we were doing under the Obama administration, push it a little further. Let's get back in a Paris climate agreement. This would be in accordance with where the Obama administration was. So it would be pretty shocking if he wasn't in favor of pulling the plug on Keystone XL Pipeline.
Yeah, it just brings you back. Look, it's the same thing over and over. Biden's presidency is, take us back to 2012. Okay, so if you're a Sunrise, I mean, I think there's a reason the Sunrise movement, which obviously I have a very different view from them, but they're like, that's not good enough. Going anti-Keystone or re-entering into Paris seems like the baseline for what a Democrat should be. And people are hailing this as some great decision, being like, oh my God, he's gonna. It's like, well, yeah, I mean, Obama did that in 2014, right? I mean,
kicking and screaming, by the way. They didn't want to, but they eventually got there. Yeah.
And I mean, from my perspective, it just seems the same thing. It's just the same kind of hollow tokenism on green issues, handicapping American industry, critical and energy secure. I mean, that Keystone is part of the key strategy in order to keep America an energy secure nation, which from a strategic perspective is incredibly necessary. And so you look at it like that, and you can say, okay, they're handicapping jobs who's against American steel? Who is against so many of these things in favor of a tokenist green policy, of which is not part of any broader agenda? And I think that that's really what it is. It's like, trying to split the difference politics always fails. You always either go one way. Look, I favor the right wing version of this, but I can put it on my political analysis hat and be like, this isn't going to get you all that many friends.
Well, the Green New Deal has been a massive, not policy win because obviously it hasn't been implemented, but framework and messaging win. It's the first time that you remember during the Obama administration, they tried to do cap and trade and they couldn't get it through.
Never.
I mean, it was really, and that people I think forget this. There ended up being a massive backlash to that. They couldn't get it through. It became a central issue in that big loss in 2010 when they lost Congress.
South.
Back when I was running, that was a lot of fun. So this has been a very fraught issue and very difficult case for activists, environmentalists, climate change activists to be able to make, because it's very easy to do, just the conversation that you're having of like, well, what about the jobs? Or the question that Biden got, what about the jobs? And he's like, I'd get rid of the jobs, or Hillary Clinton saying, I'm going to put a lot of coal miners out of work. I can't tell you how many West Virginians, when I was working there, would repeat that line back to me verbatim. And so the big innovation of the Green New Deal is, rather than picking off these individual issues and being able to say jobs versus climate, you put it into a larger framework where jobs are in fact a central part of the whole deal. And of course, the fact that it's called the Green New Deal immediately evokes the history of the New Deal and the centrality of jobs and all of that. So it's very smart messaging that got us out of that box of just jobs versus climate. Now, again, I want to be clear, I support Biden's position on this. I think it's the right move, but it's a far cry from the type of action that the climate movement demands, needs, expects that we actually need to have in order to turn back the clock on where we are headed right now. And it also is not part of that new framework that helps in terms of the politics of actually being able to push an environmental agenda.
And look, I think anybody can see that. Like I said, look, I think these jobs are fantasy. The whole thing is ridiculous. And it's just a political ploy in order to push an agenda that's always kind of been there. That being said, I think it's smart politics. I think that's why it generally polls pretty well.
It polls really well.
Yeah, I mean, and then,
especially with young voters, this is their number one issue.
Right. And then you get down south, though, I think there's always going to be electoral issues. And I think that the issue with Biden, once again, is that this incremental approach gives you no friends in politics. And from my perspective, I think it's egregious in order to go against Keystone when it's something that obviously labor unions are in favor of, that is something that makes it so that America is a more energy secure nation in a time of immense global turmoil. And so he just wins himself no friends. And it's this incrementalist approach, which I think will always make you fail in American politics, at least from here on forward.
Very interesting stuff. All right, more Rising for you after this.